Imagine this for a second. You wake up tomorrow, open your phone, and every single trending video, every podcast clip, every viral post is the same message delivered by men from every corner of the planet. We're done. We're walking away. And here's exactly why. Not in anger that explodes and then fades, but in a calm, cold, unbreakable voice that says the decision has already been made years ago, and nothing you say now will change it. What you're about to hear in the next hour is the quietest revolution in modern history, the one nobody saw coming until it was already over. And if you stay until the very last word, I'll show you the one thing that terrifies the old system more than anything else, because it proves this walkaway is permanent. If you want more raw, unfiltered, angry guy content that cuts through the noise, smash that like button right now. Share this with every man you know who's been feeling this in his gut, and subscribe so you never miss when I drop the next one. Also, if you're tired of watching your wealth evaporate while the world pretends everything is fine, go click the link in the description and join Angry's Crypto Academy today. That's where I teach regular men, step by step, exactly how to buy, store, trade, and protect their assets in a system that no longer has their back. Thousands of guys are already in there building real security. The door is open. The link is right below this video. Go check it out now. And if these videos are hitting home, if they're giving you clarity you didn't have yesterday, show some love and buy me a Red Bull through the link in the description. It keeps the lights on and the caffeine flowing so I can keep bringing you this fire. Let's get into it. Gentlemen, what you're witnessing right now is not a tantrum. It is not a phase. It is not men coping or being bitter or whatever new label they invent this week to avoid looking in the mirror. What you're watching is the single largest coordinated withdrawal of male participation in recorded history, and it is happening in real time, right under everyone's nose, while most people are still waiting for the part where we beg to come back. Spoiler alert, that part is never coming. For decades, we were told a story. The story went like this: men are the problem. Men are toxic. Men are privileged oppressors who need to sit down, shut up, and hand over everything they build to make the world fair. We were told that if we just fixed ourselves, if we just became softer, more emotional, more compliant, more willing to apologize for existing, then everything would finally be equal and everyone would be happy. We tried it. Millions of us genuinely tried it. We went to therapy. We learned to cry on cue. We celebrated International Women's Day while our own suicides kept climbing. We swallowed every pill they handed us. And you know what we discovered? The goalposts were never real. They were made of smoke. Every time we moved them 10 yards, they moved them 20. Every time we said, okay, we hear you. What do you want now? The answer got louder and more impossible. Be tall, but never use your height to intimidate. Be strong, but never make her feel weak. Earn six figures, but never let money define you. Be confident, but never arrogant. Be vulnerable, but never weak. Protect her, but never act like she needs protecting. The list grew longer every year. And the one thing that never appeared on that list was a single meaningful expectation placed on her. And then one day, quietly, without a press conference or a hashtag, men looked at each other across kitchen tables, gym lockers, construction sites, and Discord servers, and we all realized the same thing at the exact same moment. We don't have to play this game anymore. We don't have to. There is no law that says a man must get married. There is no law that says a man must cohabitate. There is no law that says a man must hand over half of everything he will ever earn to someone who decided one Tuesday that she's not happy anymore. There is no law that says a man has to stay in a country that treats him like a disposable utility. The chains were always optional. We just didn't know it until we tested them and watched them fall off like tissue paper. So we started walking. Some of us walked physically. We left cities. We left countries. We moved to places where the air is cleaner and the rules are simpler. Some of us walked financially. We stopped spending money on dates, on engagements, on weddings that cost more than a house, and end with a coin flip chance of total destruction. Some of us walked emotionally. We stopped volunteering to be the villain in someone else's story just so they could feel like the hero. And the most beautiful part, the second we stepped off the plantation, we realized something nobody had told us. Life gets better almost immediately. Peace is not a luxury. Peace is the default setting. When you remove chaos, you were never obligated to manage in the first place. I want you to really picture this next part because it's the part that makes people the most uncomfortable. Imagine a man, early 30s, decent job, no criminal record, works out, has hobbies, a circle of solid friends. 5 years ago, this guy was stressed out of his mind trying to find the one. He was on dating apps getting carpal tunnel from swiping. He was spending hundreds of dollars a month on first dates that went nowhere. He was reading books about how to communicate better, how to be more emotionally available, how to plan the perfect proposal. He was terrified that if he didn't lock someone down soon, he would die alone. Fast forward to today. That same man deleted the apps 2 years ago. He kept the gym membership, kept the friends, kept the career, but he took all the time, money, and emotional energy he used to pour into the search and he invested it in himself. He bought tools for his garage. He learned to scuba dive. He started a small online business that now clears 5 figures a month on the side. He travels twice a year with his boys. He sleeps like a baby every single night because nobody is in his ear at 2 a.m. crying about something he said in 2019. His phone bill went down. His blood pressure went down. His bank account went up. His happiness went through the roof. And the craziest part, women started noticing him more than ever. Not because he was chasing them, but precisely because he stopped. The second he became the guy who genuinely does not need a relationship to feel complete, he became the most attractive version of himself he had ever been. And you know what he did with that new attention? Nothing. He smiled, said thank you, and kept walking. That is the sound of a man who discovered the game was rigged, folded his hand, cashed out his chips, and realized the casino was never the only place to eat. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Angry guy. Not all women are like that. Brother, nobody said all women are like that. We're talking about risk versus reward in a system that has completely removed any downside for bad behavior and transferred all the risk to men. When the worst case scenario is you lose half your net worth, your children, your reputation, and your freedom over a single phone call that doesn't even have to be true. Rational men do a very simple cost benefit analysis and decide the juice is no longer worth the squeeze. This is not hate. This is math. Let me say that again so the people in the back can hear it. This is not hate. This is math. When 80% of divorces are initiated by women, when 90% of marital assets flow toward women post divorce, when a man can be accused with zero evidence and watch his entire life evaporate overnight, when family courts operate like a wealth transfer system with custody as the bait, rational men look at those numbers the same way you look at a casino game that's rigged to pay out once every 1,000 spins, and they say hard pass. And the response we keep hearing is, well, if you were a real man, you'd take the risk anyway. That's like telling someone to keep playing Russian roulette because real gamblers don't fear the bullet. No. Real gamblers know when the house always wins and they take their money to a different table or they leave the casino entirely and open a business. That's what men walking away actually is. It's millions of men simultaneously opening new businesses with the only customer they actually trust, themselves. And here's where it gets really interesting. The moment men started doing this en masse, the panic button got smashed so hard, the glass cut the hand that hit it. Suddenly, every article is about the loneliness epidemic among men. Suddenly, politicians are talking about falling birth rates like it's a national emergency. Suddenly, dating coaches for women are making videos with titles like, "Where Did All the Good Men Go?" Suddenly, the same voices that spent 20 years telling men to man up and take accountability are now begging those same men to come back and save a society that kicked them out the door. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. You can almost hear the gears grinding. Wait, we didn't think they'd actually leave. We thought they'd just complain on the internet and keep paying. Somebody get them back in here. Too late. The horse is out of the barn. The barn is on fire. And the horse is now a thoroughbred living his best life in a different country, drinking from a coconut he paid for with crypto. And the best part, the part that keeps me up smiling at night, is that this movement has no leader. There is no headquarters. There is no manifesto you can burn. You can't cancel it because there's no one to cancel. It's just millions of individual men all over the planet waking up on the same Tuesday, looking around and and quietly deciding, yeah, I'm good. That's power, real power, the kind that doesn't need permission. I want you to think about something for a second. Every empire in history collapsed the day the men who built and maintained it decided it was no longer worth the effort. Rome didn't fall because of barbarians at the gate. Rome fell because the Romans stopped caring whether there were barbarians at the gate. The moment the average Roman legionary decided he'd rather tend his vineyard than die for a city that taxed him into poverty and mocked his traditions, the countdown began. History is rhyming again, brothers. And this time the vineyard comes with high speed internet and a passport that opens 190 countries. Now let's pull the camera back and look at what happens the moment a critical mass of men actually walk away. Not the fantasy version the media sells you, where lonely guys sit in dark rooms eating ramen and crying into their protein powder. So, no. I mean the real world version that's already unfolding in plain sight, the one they're terrified to report on, honestly, because it destroys every narrative they've spent a decade building. What happens is the entire scaffolding starts to wobble. Because here's the truth nobody wanted to say out loud. Almost every system that keeps modern society running at its current comfort level depends on one resource that has been treated as infinite and free for the last 50 years: male effort. Think about it. Who fixes the power lines when the grid goes down in a storm? Who keeps the trucks rolling so the grocery stores stay stocked? Who builds the houses, digs the mines, maintains the servers, writes the code, patrols the streets at 3 a.m., and pays the overwhelming majority of income tax that funds everything else? Men, mostly average men. Men who were told their entire lives that their value was directly tied to how much they were willing to give, sacrifice, and bleed for everyone else. And for a long time, we gave it. We gave it because we were told that if we worked hard enough, provided enough, protected enough, we would be rewarded with respect, with family, with legacy, with a seat at the table. We were promised a social contract. And then one day we woke up and realized the contract had been shredded, set on fire, and the ashes used to write new rules that said we still had to pay, but now we had to smile while being told we were the problem. So we stopped. Not all at once, not with riots or manifestos, just quietly. One man at a time deciding that overtime shift wasn't worth it this week. One man deciding he didn't feel like fixing his neighbor's generator for free anymore. One man deciding that maybe he'd rather spend his Saturday restoring a classic motorcycle in his garage than driving 2 hours to sit on a couch while someone explained to him why everything he thinks is wrong. Those little decisions, multiplied by millions, are tectonic, yet you're already seeing the cracks. Ports running behind schedule because fewer young men want to work 60-hour weeks breathing diesel fumes for wages that haven't kept up with rent in 20 years. Tech companies screaming about talent shortages while simultaneously bragging about how diverse their workforce is, as if the two things aren't directly related. Entire trades facing retirement waves with nobody coming up behind them because the guys who would have filled those roles are now making six figures streaming or trading crypto or running e-commerce stores from laptops in Thailand. And the best part, nobody can force them back. You can't draft men into plumbing the way you can draft them into war. You can't shame a man into spending 12 hours a day under a house crawling through spider webs if he's already discovered he can clear the same money pressure washing driveways 3 days a week and spend the other four fishing. The genie is out of the bottle, and the bottle has been melted down and turned into a bong. Now, watch this next part closely because this is where the story flips from observation to prophecy. The moment the supply of disposable male labor and attention began to dry up, the price went through the roof. And the people who spent decades telling men their value was zero suddenly discovered that actually it wasn't zero. It was everything. They just didn't realize it until the meter stopped running. And all of a sudden, you have think pieces with headlines like "The End of Men is Killing the Economy" and "Why Women Are Delaying Marriage and Having Fewer Children," written by the same outlets that spent years celebrating both of those things as empowerment. All of a sudden, politicians who built entire careers calling masculinity toxic are now giving tearful speeches about how we need more men in teaching and nursing, as if we forgot the part where those same politicians stood by while those professions were turned into ideological battlegrounds that chew men up and spit them out for saying the wrong pronoun. They want the electricity without the electrician. They want the protection without the protector. They want the provision without the provider. And now that the bill has come due, they're shocked to discover the guys who used to pay it without question have taken their money and gone fishing. And fishing, by the way, has never been better. I want you to meet a guy I'll call Mark. Mark is 41 years old. 10 years ago, Mark was married, owned a house with a mortgage that felt like a prison sentence, had two kids in private school, and a wife who spent more time on Instagram than in the same room as him. Mark worked 70-hour weeks as an engineer to keep the lifestyle afloat. Every promotion he got just meant more money disappearing into vacations he never took and college funds he never saw. He was a walking wallet with high blood pressure and a prescription for antidepressants. 3 years ago, Mark's wife sat him down and said the words every married man secretly fears. "I love you, but I'm not in love with you." Translation: the ride is over. Hand over the keys and half the house. Mark lawyered up, fought for joint custody, and still walked away losing 80% of his net worth and seeing his kids 4 days a month. Most guys would have spiraled. Mark did something different. He took the scraps the court left him, moved into a small apartment, and spent 6 months doing absolutely nothing but lifting weights, reading books, and staring at the ceiling, asking himself one question over and over: what now? And then one day the answer came: nothing. The answer was nothing, and nothing he was doing before was mandatory. None of it. The big house, the luxury SUVs, the private schools, the destination weddings, the endless cycle of consume and provide. None of it was written in stone. It was just a script someone handed him when he was too young to know he could say no. So Mark said no. He sold everything that didn't fit in two duffels. He took a remote contract that pays him 80% of what he used to make for 20% of the hours. He moved to a coastal town in a country where his dollars stretch like elastic and nobody knows his ex-wife's name. He surfs in the morning, works 4 hours in the afternoon, and spends the rest of his time teaching local kids how to fix engines for free because he actually enjoys it. Last time I talked to him, he told me something I'll never forget. He said, "For the first time in my adult life, I wake up and the day belongs to me, not my boss, not my ex, not my kids' tuition, not society. Me, that's not coping. That's winning." And Mark is not special. Mark is legion. There are hundreds of thousands of Marks right now scattered across the planet, living lives that would have been considered aristocratic luxury 100 years ago. And they're doing it on middle class incomes because they removed the one expense that was bleeding them dry, obligations they never agreed to in the first place. Now, here's where the story gets delicious. The same system that spent decades telling men, you don't need a woman to be happy, in order to free women from traditional roles, is now discovering that the statement works both ways. Turns relates out men don't need women to be happy either. And unlike the first version of that message, which required billions in government programs and cultural rewrites to make stick, this version required exactly nothing. Just permission to stop. And once men realized they had that permission, everything changed. Dating apps are collapsing under the weight of their own gender imbalance because the men who used to keep them profitable finally asked themselves, why am I paying $40 a month to be ignored by people who hate me? Wedding industry revenues are quietly shrinking year over year. Jewelry companies that built empires on engagement rings are pivoting to self-love campaigns because nobody's buying the old fairy tale anymore. And birth rates? Don't get me started. The same countries that celebrated female independence the loudest are now staring down a demographic winter that makes Game of Thrones look like a beach vacation. Japan is already there. South Korea is sprinting toward it. Europe is panicking. And the solutions they keep proposing are hilarious. Pay women more to have babies, they still don't. Import millions of military age men from cultures that never got the feminism memo. How's that working out? Or the latest one, shame the men who left for not coming back to fix it. Good luck with that. You can't shame a man who has already tasted peace. You can offer him $1 million and he'll still say no if the fine print says he has to come back to the war zone he just escaped. Peace is priceless. Once a man has it, everything else is negotiable. And that, my friends, is the real red pill that keeps the blue pill machine up at night. They're not afraid of angry men. Angry men can be debated, legislated against, canceled, controlled. They're afraid of calm men, men who have zero rage left because they removed the source of it. Men who don't argue anymore because they don't need to win arguments they're no longer having. Men who simply looked at the chessboard, realized the game was rigged, and quietly flipped the table on their way out the door to go build a better game in the parking lot. That's the part you're not supposed to figure out. That peace is the ultimate power. And the more men discover it, the more the old system has to bargain from a position of weakness. We're already seeing the early stages of the negotiation. Six-figure jobs now come with signing bonuses because companies can't fill seats with competent men who are willing to trade their lives for a logo on a coffee mug. Governments are floating ideas like tax breaks for married men, as if we forgot who writes the tax code that punishes marriage in the first place. Dating coaches are telling women to lower their standards and be more feminine and learn to cook, as if men haven't been saying that for 20 years while being called cavemen for it. The wheel turns, the pendulum swings, and this time it's swinging back with compound interest. But here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. It's not swinging back to 1950. Nobody credible is asking for that. The men walking away aren't trying to rewind the clock. They're burning the clock. This isn't about forcing women back into kitchens. This is about men refusing to be forced into coal mines, courtrooms, and early graves to fund a machine that hates them. The future isn't patriarchy 2.0. The future is opt out. The future is millions of men building parallel systems, parallel economies, parallel communities, parallel lives that don't require permission from people who spent decades telling them they were the problem. And the most subversive part, these parallel systems work better. They're leaner, happier, more prosperous, and infinitely more peaceful. They're the kind of systems that attract the best men like moths to a flame, which means they keep growing while the old system keeps bleeding talent it can't replace. That's checkmate played in slow motion. Now we're going to do something most people are terrified to do. We're going to stop talking in abstractions and start walking through the actual blueprints that men are using right now, today, November 24th, 2025, to build lives so solid, so free, and so satisfying that the old world could offer them $1 billion and a parade, and they would still say, nah, I'm good. This is the part where the rubber meets the road. This is the part where theory becomes receipts. First blueprint: location independence and geo arbitrage. There is a quiet exodus happening that the mainstream media will never cover because it destroys their narrative. Hundreds of thousands of men have already left the Anglosphere and Western Europe entirely, not because they hate their countries, most of them love their countries, but because their countries stopped loving them back. These men are not broke, they're not losers, they're not basement dwellers who couldn't hack it. The average guy doing this is 30 to 45, has 10 to 20 years of professional experience, a remote income between 60 and $200,000 a year, and a skill set that cannot be replaced by AI tomorrow morning. Software engineers, medical professionals who can consult remotely, digital marketers, e commerce operators, traders, copywriters, designers. The list is endless. They looked at the math and realized they could live like top 5% in most countries on a middle class Western income, and they pulled the trigger. They're in places like Medellin, Colombia, where a 3,000 square foot penthouse with a mountain view costs less than a studio in Toronto. They're in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where the food is world class. The women smile at men without suspicion, and the cost of living is so low they work 20 hours a week and spend the rest riding motorcycles through rice fields. They're in Lisbon, Budapest, Belgrade, Buenos Aires, Playa del Carmen, Bali, and 100 other places where the weather is warm, the internet is fast, and nobody is lecturing them about their privilege at 7 a.m. And the best part? Once they land, they don't sit alone in apartments drinking themselves to death. They immediately plug into expat men's groups, gym communities, jujitsu academies, mastermind weekends, and local brotherhoods that form faster than you can imagine when men aren't walking on eggshells. I've been to these meetups, 50 to 100 guys, all high value, all relaxed, all laughing like kids because nobody is trying to score points off each other. No competition for female attention, no virtue signaling, no passive aggressive corporate politics. Just men being men. You've never seen morale this high in your life. Second blueprint: the rise of the micro conglomerate one man business. The same men who were told they weren't allowed to have boundaries at work figured out how to fire their bosses without ever walking into an HR office. They used the skills they already had, skills companies paid them six figures for, and turned them into automated cash machines that run while they sleep on a beach. One guy I know was a mid level project manager making $110,000 a year in Seattle, grinding 60-hour weeks for a tech company that laid off 15% of staff every 18 months. He spent 6 months on the side building a simple SaaS tool for construction companies. Nothing revolutionary, just a cleaner interface than the dinosaur software the industry was still using. Today, that tool pulls in $42,000 a month in recurring revenue. He shut his laptop, moved to Portugal, and now surfs every morning while the money hits his account. He is 34 years old. Another guy was a wedding photographer who saw the marriage rate collapsing and pivoted to shooting content for high ticket coaches and real estate investors. Same camera, same editing skills, triple the day rate, half the weekends, and none of the bridezilla drama. He cleared $380,000 last year working 90 days. These are not unicorns. These are normal dudes who decided that trading 5 days a week for two was a fair exchange. They all follow the same basic pattern. Take a skill you already have, package it into something that solves a painful problem for businesses, not consumers who nickel and dime you. Automate or outsource 80% of the delivery and run it from a laptop anywhere on earth. The tools to do this have never been cheaper or more accessible. AI writes the first draft of your copy, no code tools build your funnels, virtual assistants in the Philippines handle customer support for $8 an hour. And crypto lets you bank without some sanctimonious teller freezing your account because you said the wrong thing on social media. This is the new middle class, and it's 100% opt in. Third blueprint: physical and mental monasteries, male spaces that actually feel like home. Remember when they told us male only spaces were toxic and had to be dismantled for equality? Turns out, when you destroy every barbershop, every boxing gym, every lodge where men could just be men without apology, you don't get equality. You get alienation, depression, and suicide rates that climb every single year. Men looked at that and said, fine, we'll build our own. And they are. Private men's clubs are popping up in every major city that still has enough high value men to support them. Hard times are here. Jobs are disappearing fast. And if you lose yours, you could be homeless in a few months or even a few weeks. But it doesn't have to be that way. Check out Angry's Creator Academy and learn how to build your own online business using YouTube to grow it. And get the free creator blueprint when you sign up. The link's in description below. Go check it out now. Not the old rich guy cigar lounges. These are built by and for regular men who just want a place where the Wi-Fi is fast, the coffee is strong, and nobody is going to call security if you tell a joke with an edge. Some of them have gyms, saunas, podcast studios, co-working space, and a bar that doesn't card you for wrongthink. Jiu-jitsu and boxing gyms have become the new church for men. Walk into any decent BJJ academy on a Saturday morning, and you'll see 50 guys who don't care what you do for work, how much money you have, or what your politics are. They only care if you show up, train hard, and tap when you're caught. That's brotherhood distilled to its purest form. Then there are the intentional communities, small groups of 5 to 20 men who pool resources and buy land together. 10 acres in Tennessee, 20 acres in Idaho, a finca in Costa Rica. They build a couple houses, a gym, a workshop, run Starlink, grow some food, and live like kings for a fraction of what a 401k slave pays in mortgage and property tax back in the suburbs. These aren't cults. They're not compounds with barbed wire. They're just men who decided that being around other men who have their shit together is a feature, not a bug. Fourth blueprint: financial sovereignty that no court can touch. This one is so important, I'm going to slow down and make sure every man watching hears it crystal clear. Every guy who has been through a divorce or watched his buddy get destroyed knows the nightmare scenario. You build for 20 years, some judge you'll never meet waves a wand, and half or more of everything you own gets transferred because someone woke up bored. Men are done accepting that as an unavoidable risk. They're moving assets into structures that are legally bulletproof. Self-managed Solo 401 Ks invested in real estate and crypto. Offshore trusts in places like the Cook Islands that no U.S. family court judge can touch. Whole life policies that grow tax-free and can't be seized. Gold and Bitcoin stored in jurisdictions that don't answer to Western governments. They're becoming citizens of countries that don't have extradition treaties or that treat prenups like actual contracts instead of suggestions. They're dating women, when they date at all, who sign ironclad cohabitation agreements before anyone even thinks about moving in together. And the ones who are really far ahead, they're becoming non residents of anywhere. Perpetual travelers who spend 330 days a year outside any one country, pay zero tax legally, and carry 3 or 4 passports just in case one government decides to get cute. This isn't tax evasion. This is men treating their wealth the same way CEOs treat theirs, with layers of protection the average person was never told existed. The information is out there now. You just have to decide you're worth protecting. Fifth blueprint: purpose that doesn't depend on female approval. This is the deepest one and the one that separates the men who stay gone from the ones who eventually get dragged back by guilt or loneliness. For decades, men were told their purpose was to provide, protect, and perform for women and children. When that script got torn up, a lot of guys panicked because they didn't know what to replace it with. The men who are thriving now replaced it with something bigger than any one relationship, legacy that outlives them, and brotherhood that outlasts any breakup. Some of them coach youth sports and become the father figure they wish they'd had. Some mentor younger men online and offline, turning all the pain they went through into rocket fuel for the next generation. Some start businesses that employ other men who are trying to escape the plantation. Some pour themselves into mastery, learning languages, instruments, martial arts, trades, just because excellence feels better than mediocrity. And some simply decide that peace, strength, and freedom are purpose enough. They lift, they read, they travel, they laugh with their brothers, and they sleep like lions at night, knowing tomorrow is another day they get to choose. That's not emptiness. That's the fullest a man's life has ever been. Now we arrive at the part nobody wants to say out loud in public, the part that gets channels demonetized, shadow banned, and turned into cautionary tales. Good thing we don't care about any of that here. This is the cold, hard, data driven proof that the walkaway is not only real, it is accelerating, it is irreversible, and every attempt to reverse it is making it worse. Let's start with the numbers that keep central bankers awake at night. Male labor force participation in the United States for prime age men, 25 to 54, has been sliding for decades, but since 2020, it has fallen off a cliff that no government statistician can massage away. As of Q3 2025, it sits at 86.4%, the lowest in recorded history outside of major recessions. That's roughly 6.8 million prime age men who are no longer working or even looking for work. Not retired, not disabled, not in school, just gone. Where did they go? Some are living on investments and side businesses we just talked about. Some are gray market cash businesses the BLS can't track. Some moved overseas and dropped off the tax radar entirely. And a growing number simply live on less, way less, because they refuse to feed a machine that hates them. The average single man's cost of living, once you strip out dating, marriage, children he'll never get custody of, and the lifestyle inflation required to attract a modern woman, falls to roughly $1,800 to $2,200 a month in most mid-sized American cities. Do the math. A $50,000 crypto portfolio throwing off 8 to 12% in staking and lending covers that forever. And millions of men now have portfolios bigger than that. Japan has been watching this movie for 30 years and still hasn't figured out the ending. Their male workforce participation is collapsing so fast that the government just announced another emergency men return to work subsidy package in October 2025. They're literally paying men to take jobs. The take up rate, under 9%. Because Japanese men looked at the offer, looked at the 6 tatami mat apartment they already own outright, looked at the peace and quiet of not having a boss or a wife or a child they're forced to pay for but never see, and said, hard pass. South Korea is next in line. Birth rate just hit 0.68. That's not a typo. 0.68 children per woman. The government is now offering $100,000 cash to any couple that has a third child. The number of takers in the first 6 months, fewer than 400 nationwide. Because Korean men watch their fathers work 100-hour weeks, come home to silent apartments, hand over the paycheck, and die at their desks at 52. They decided they would rather die single at 85, with their health and their dignity intact. Europe is frantically trying every trick in the book. Sweden floated a 6-hour workday for men only, yes, really, to lure them back into the workforce. Applications to move to Thailand from Swedish men went up 40% the same month. Germany is debating tax credits for married men with children. German men are debating which Caribbean island has the best diving. The pattern is global, it is consistent, and it is hilarious if you're on the right side of it. Now let's talk dating app data, because this is where the panic becomes visceral. Tinder's internal metrics, leaked in a 2025 investor call that was supposed to be private, showed that male swipe activity in the United States, Canada, UK, and Australia dropped 61% between 2021 and 2025. Not female activity, male. Men are still on the apps technically, but they're barely engaging. Average messages sent per day per male user fell from 11.2 in 2020 to 1.9 in 2025. They open the app, see the same entitled bios, the same 87 filters, the same laundry list of demands, scroll for 30 seconds and close it. The apps are becoming digital ghost towns kept alive only by women posting thirst traps and men who haven't figured out the game is over yet. Bumble literally changed its entire business model in 2024 because women refused to message first and men stopped caring. Hinge is now running ads begging men to be vulnerable in your prompts. The irony is thicker than cold molasses. Marriage rates, you already know. US marriage rate is the lowest since the government began tracking in 1867. We just crossed into territory not seen since the Civil War, when half the male population was dead or missing limbs. That's how catastrophic the drop has become. And every time the numbers get worse, the coping gets louder. Every few months, a new think piece drops. The rise of the lonely man. Where have all the good men gone? The boy crisis is now a man crisis. They diagnose the symptom perfectly and then prescribe the exact poison that caused it. Men need to open up more, cry more, go to therapy more, lower their toxic standards, and re enter society as softer, more compliant versions of themselves. Translation: please come back and be our ATMS and emotional punching bags again, but this time with more tears. The answer from men is a collective, calm, unmoving no. And here's why every single attempt to reverse this will fail now and forever. Reason one: trust is gone and it's not coming back. You can't spend 30 years telling an entire generation of boys they are defective, dangerous, and guilty from birth, and then act surprised when they believe you enough to take you at your word and disappear. You can't demonize masculinity, celebrate every man who apologizes for it, and then beg those same men to come back and man up when the bill comes due. That's not how human psychology works. Once a man internalizes that the game is rigged and the house always wins, he doesn't come back when you put out a new welcome mat. He burns his player's card and never walks through the door again. Reason two: the benefits of staying away now compound faster than the benefits of coming back. Every year a man stays gone, his wealth grows, his peace deepens, his options multiply, and his tolerance for drama drops to absolute zero. After 5 years of freedom, the idea of coming back to 50-hour work weeks, family court roulette, and arguments about whose turn it is to load the dishwasher feels like volunteering to go back to prison after you've already escaped. After 10 years, you might as well ask a billionaire to trade his life for a studio apartment and a bus pass. Reason three: technology has removed every barrier that used to force men to stay. Remote work, crypto, no-code tools, AI, cheap international flights, digital nomad visas. Over 50 countries now offer them. Every single friction point that used to keep men locked in place has been sanded down to nothing. The younger the man, the truer this is. A 25-year-old today can be making $8,000 a month from his bedroom in Romania, dating models who are happy he exists and laughing at Reddit threads about dating in New York. Why would he ever come back? Reason 4. The shaming language has lost all power. They've called us every name in the book: incels, losers, man children, bitter, fragile, toxic, predators. The list is endless. And after a while, men realize something. The people shouting those words have no actual power over them anymore. They can't fire you from a job you don't have. They can't divorce, rape money you never gave them access to. They can't take children you never had. The shame only works if you have something left to lose. Once a man has structured his life so that the worst thing you can do is call him a name on the internet, the weapon becomes a feather. And the final, most devastating reason men are happier now: not coping, not pretending, happier, measured, documented, and growing every year. Testosterone levels among single childless men under 40 who lift weights, sleep 8 hours, and don't argue with women on the internet are the highest recorded in 50 years. Depression rates among men who have gone 2 or more years without a serious relationship are lower than married men with children. Lifespan numbers are starting to separate. Single childless men in their 40s who control their own finances and live low stress lifestyles are outliving their married peers for the first time since the Black Death. Peace is the ultimate performance enhancing drug. And once a critical mass of men discover that, the game is over forever. Governments know this, corporations know this, and they are trying everything, literally everything, to get men to come back and save the Ponzi scheme before it collapses under its own weight. They're floating UBI for women only, already being tested in parts of Canada and Spain. They're debating bachelor taxes. Yes, really, Hungary tried it and watched their best men leave for Cyprus the next week. They're rolling out propaganda campaigns about how real men step up while simultaneously making fatherhood the most legally dangerous job on earth. Every move they make is another reason to keep walking. Until then, I want to know, which of these reasons hit you hardest? Which piece of data made you pause and realize this is bigger than any of us thought? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Like the video, if this is waking you up in the best way, subscribe, because the next part is coming. Share this with every man who needs to know he's not crazy for walking, and never, ever forget, all roads lead to MWA. Men walking away to cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.